What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another live episode of Podium Conversations. I am your host, Aramis. I can't say how happy I am to be back midweek with a lot to talk about and some very interesting stuff in some of these press conferences. We're not going to be able to get to everything, but I will bring up some of the stuff that I've heard in some of the other press conferences. And I think we can glean some things from it. There was one point that I made in the podcast on Monday that I kind of just wanted to, reiterate and make very clear, because I didn't get a chance to say the specifics of the statistics behind my point. You'll see when I get there, but man, it is what's going on, Tommy? What's going on, Bones? What up, Ro? Everybody starving is right. All right, so I've been asked by one of our inner circle faithful here to steal my content. Okay, sure. So we're gonna do Brady's press conference, and I think I've watched the press conference because this came out a couple of days ago, this would have been the day after the game, so Monday. A couple of days ago, came out Monday, and I think some of what we're gonna see is just nothing you can do about it, and some of the other stuff that we're gonna hear is kind of unfortunate. But I do have some theories, and I do have some interesting conversation. So let's get to it. What up, Laura? What up, Sweat? Let me tap this music here. All right, got that out of there and set that there. Okay. All right, who else we got in here? All right, Nate's back. All right, I'm in the mood after burnt. Oh, damn, bro. Man, I'm sorry to hear that. I actually, truth be told, my wife and I bought her a Yorkie. This was like years ago. We had just been dating for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or something like that, and bought her a Yorkie. And about, like, I think he was 5 or something like that, he ended up catching cancer, and we ended up having to put him down. That was tough. So I get it. Hopefully this helps to take your mind off of it. Let's get to it. Because we got an hour, and I got to try and get to as much as I possibly can before we get to the show on Friday, because Friday's show, obviously, we got to talk about the Bucs. So here is Joe Brady after the loss to the Dolphins. Let's see what we can get out of this. Matter of fact, before we do that, I need to switch to, bam, that one there. Okay, now we're ready to rock. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
You referenced a couple of weeks ago having no concerns with the passing game. And I think you said kind of that it's there when you need it. Looking back at yesterday's game, I think it would be fair to say that you needed it yesterday and it wasn't always there. So why, in your mind, was that the case?
If I can go back in the game, I would have threw the ball a little earlier more. I felt like that was the thing we had going for us early in the game, and not we fell behind the chains in the run game early in the game. First drive, obviously we got some different defenses that, we knew with some of the moves they were going to have, there was going to be some differences. And, so the first drive came out in a couple passes with some of the adjustments, and then, want to get the run game going. But we fell behind the chains on some of the early first down runs that we've had some.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I listened to it, but I'm glad I saw that. I'm so glad I saw that. Please tell me y'all saw this. Oh my gosh, this is huge. So the first thing on this is you got Joe Brady saying outright, and I'm paraphrasing, right? I can go back and play it, but it's essentially he's saying, I wish I would have started off passing more, and then he goes on to talk about the runs on first downs. He wanted to be able to pass the ball, to get in rhythm, to kind of get that aspect of the game going. And then look at the face he makes when he says runs. It is very telling because of the level of sarcasm, the it's hard to describe the way he turns his mouth. It's the quintessential runs. Like that's how he turned his mouth. It's the Omar Epps. Like you know what I'm saying? Like that is very revealing. Holy cow! Let's watch this again.
The case.
If I can go back in the game, I would have threw the ball a little earlier more. I felt like that was the thing we had going for us early in the game, and not the.
And they did because the Dolphins were playing two backup corners, and traditionally throughout this season, they've been a very bad passing offense. Their run defense, especially against us, has been not bad, not bad at all. Pretty much every time we've played them, it's been hard to run against them. We've had a much easier time passing the ball against them. So that, I mean, he's not wrong there. They should have focused on that.
We fell behind the chains in the run game early in the game. You know, first drive, obviously we got some different defenses that, you know, we knew with some of the moves they were going to have, there was going to be some differences. And, you know, so the first drive came out in a couple passes with some of the adjustments, and then, you know, want to get the run game going, but we fell behind the chains on some of the early first down runs.
That was it right there. Early first down runs. So I was listening to Tyler Dunn, and he does a podcast with Jim Monas. Those of you that know Jim Monas, he used to be a scout with the Buffalo Bills. And Jim Monas was talking about some of the comments from previous employees of the Bills, whether it's player or coach. And he talked about the oh man, I'm losing my train of thought. I'm trying to remember this specifically, and I told myself to do it. So basically, he just kind of gave some of the quotes from the story that he had written, the Tyler Dunn report. It's still on his site. You guys can go check that out. GoAlongTD.com. But the quote that he used was one where this guy was basically talking about Sean's process, right? And how that seemed to clash with other people's processes. And this was obviously, not obviously to you, but obviously to me, it was in reference to Brian Daboll and their relationship, because that was some of the conversation that came up when they talked about, you know, Brian Daboll possibly coming back to Buffalo and, you know, consulting or whatever. And this gesture and this verbiage from Joe Brady obviously shows a level of frustration with what's being asked of him right now. Tyler Dunn did confirm something, and it wasn't like a reported confirmation, but through the ancillary reports, you know, that he had gotten from, you know, players and coaches and stuff like that, he had pieced together the same way I did, that this shift from the air raid stuff that we were doing, the heavy passing game, and we were like tops in the league and passing on first down, and you know, third down conversion rates were great and all that kind of stuff. And we switched from that to this ball control, time of possession, efficiency passing, run first. We are the heaviest run team in the league right now. We run the ball on first down more than any other team in the league right now. Like, he basically made it clear that that's influence from the head coach. So you know, this is another guy that has, you know, he was able to talk to people on the inside in the same way that I was, and get this impression that Sean's dipping his fingers in a lot of people's cereal all around the franchise to try and get what he wants to see on the field, which is winning with defense and physicality. That's all he cares about. Does he want a pass game? Of course he wants a pass game. Passing is part of football. You need to be able to pass the ball to score. You run to close the game out. That's old school. Everybody knows traditional style football. You pass to score, you run to win. And then you play defense. That's where Sean is coming from in his mentality, right? Even though in today's day and age, you have to be elite in the passing game and be strong in the run game in order to have a two-dimensional offense in the NFL. Most teams don't have, like, let's be real about this. Most teams do not have a 100% two-dimensional offense, specifically because it's all about the matchups. Teams are going to try to find one thing to take away. What you have to be able to get to as an offense is, okay, you want to take away James Cook? Your linebackers, this is for the Texans game. I noticed this in particular, so make sure you guys watch for this on Sunday if you want to do some pre-scouting. The Texans are weak against tight ends. They're weak against tight ends because their linebackers are doing most of the coverage. Their safeties oftentimes are getting beat by good tight ends. So that aspect of the matchup would be, yeah, the Texans have the best defense in the NFL right now. They are crushing teams with their defense, and their offense can't really move the ball very much. That's why they're not the best team in the NFL. But when you're going against a defense like that, and you know that they're going to try to take away your run game, okay, I'll throw my tight end at you. I'll do some different stuff with Knox. I'll do some different stuff with Hawes, and we'll have a passing game. I'll make sure to get them the ball frequently so that you have to change some things in your defense to focus on them. Now that creates space for everybody else around them. It's a no-brainer. You don't have to be in the NFL to know this stuff. There are so many scouts and so many people that work with teams, that cover teams. We've all figured this out, right? So when we have this discussion on Friday on what the Bills can do to fix all this, and I'll talk a few bits and pieces here and there, but when we get to having that conversation, it's very simple. It's very simple. What makes it hard is you have a head coach that has shown he's not willing to change his mind until he absolutely has to. And the proof of that is last year. They lost to the Ravens. They lost to the Texans. Their season looked like it was going to go very badly because they did not have enough weapons on offense. What did they do? They went and got Amari Cooper. And what did Keon Coleman tell you? They changed some things in the offense. They were not running the same route combinations. They were not running they were running a different style or scheme of offense after the trade. They had figured out that what they were doing wasn't working. Then they changed it. And then what did they do? They became a pretty darn good team after that. So I think this loss may push them to that point. We may see that this Sunday. We may see that, after Gabe Davis comes. I don't know when we're going to see it, but Joe Brady is saying a lot right now. And I hope that everybody caught that.
That we've had some success with in past weeks, and so that was one of my things. If we can go back, I felt like, I should have got to the pass game a little earlier because we were a little more efficient passing the ball than we were running the ball, and then we were living in some third and longs.
Second time he said it. Second time he said it in the same answer, to be clear. He's trying to get it out there in the safest way possible right now. Pay attention.
Second and longs, which is always going to make life a little tougher. So I didn't have a concern with our pass game early, as opposed to we were living in pretty bad situations that if I can go back, I would have threw the ball a little more on first down.
Third time. Said it 3 times.
He made that really nice touchdown play like yesterday. Elijah and Curtis, a lot of people were clamoring at the trade deadline for speed on the outside, but those two guys, at some points in their career have been really good vertical threats on the outside. Is there a way to maybe unlock that in what you guys do?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, when we play like we played, I got to be better, right? Like I'm not going to point the fingers at anybody else.
Coach speak.
if when we have that type of performance, it falls solely on me. And if guys aren't getting involved in ways that they probably should, again, that's strictly on me. And so it's something that as a staff we continue to look at and try to find ways. And each game's going to be different, and we know that we're going to find different ways to win football games. And we knew the kind of game that was going to be played, and we didn't execute, and we didn't execute at a high level. And we dug ourselves early, and opportunities to push the ball or utilize some of the speed.
So this is very subtle. This is very subtle, right? He's shrinking right now. I don't know if you guys notice this. I'm going to back it up just a little bit. Let me see. And you can even kind of see it as I back up, but his t-shirt and his shoulders seem to keep rising higher and higher up his, up the back of his head. And it's just kind of interesting to watch him just get like his shoulders close in, I guess is what I'm looking at. But it's subtle. Like it's a slight movement, but you can see him as he starts to, talk about the options available of things that he can do. He's shrinking his shoulders. They're tightening up. All of this stuff happens because there's not only a level of frustration, but a level of what's the word I'm looking for? It's not desperation, but it's a feeling of being destitute, being in a position where the solutions, what you can do, but you also know what the limitations are on this offense. Brady knows it, and so does Josh.
Threats on the outside. Is there a way to maybe unlock that in what you guys do?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, when we play like we played, I got to be better, right? Like I'm not going to point the fingers at anybody else. If when we have that type of performance, it falls solely on me. And if guys aren't getting involved in ways that they probably should, again, that's strictly on me. And so it's something that as a staff we continue to look at and try to find ways. And each game's going to be different, and we know that we're going to find different ways to win football games. And we knew the kind of game that was going to be played, and we didn't execute, and we didn't execute at a high level. And we dug ourselves early, and opportunities to push the ball or utilize some of the speed. Some of those opportunities obviously didn't get to, or I haven't gotten to, and so I got to continue to do a better job to get those guys involved.
What's your level of concern, disappointment that?
Watch this left shoulder shrink in a little bit more. I mean, they already kind of came in a little bit. He's kind of started off the press conference in this kind of, self-soothing pose. I mean, it usually when you have the arms crossed, but you can kind of tell they're both open. That's self-soothing. He's hugging himself right now. He's in a very uncomfortable and very vulnerable position because he hears a lot of the criticism. So this is a self-soothing position that he started off his press conference in. It's very telling as to what he's feeling being in this situation, answering these questions. Most offensive coordinators don't get this much attention. I mean, I watch a lot of teams, and I think part of this is he's entered into this space because he's a strong head coaching candidate. But the other part of this is he's on a team where, the offense under him started to look like there was hope. And last year it looked like it was getting back to a dominant place. And then this season it falls off. So naturally he's going to have some heat, but this position tells you everything you need to know about what he's feeling right now.
It seems from our view that some of these issues that seemed resolved to per se reemerge from that Atlanta, New England stretch.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's throughout the season. There's going to be obviously the highs and lows, and you hope that those things don't. At the end of the day, right now we're chasing consistency, and every game counts the same in the NFL. And
you see the thumb, right? Watch the thumb. That's self-soothing movement. We do it when we're crossing our fingers, and you'll see people's thumb just kind of rub. You see it when people are just sitting there talking, and that thumb gets to rub. All of this is self-soothing right now. These are all coping mechanisms in the heat of the moment to try and get through whatever discomfort he's feeling at this moment.
And our approach, our mindset, they're nameless, faceless opponents, and every week it counts the same on the record, is the same, and not to say that guys' approaches are different, but the records mean absolutely nothing. We got to earn it every week, and our standard that we hold ourselves to, we didn't play to yesterday, and ultimately it results in a loss. And we speak about the process, but at the end of the day, the result, we work everything we do to go 1-0, and we didn't do what we had to do yesterday. And so, I got to do a better job, and it always starts at the top. And if it's not getting it done, I'm not doing a good enough job.
Because just the number of
micro reactions, people. Micro reactions. So two things. First and foremost, when you're reading body language, you have to look for clusters. You can't just judge by one thing and just, there's deception going on. It's not how it works. Now, in this situation, you have more licking of the lips. You have more lip movement, especially when the lips disappear like that. A lot of people think, because you lick your lips in the midst of a conversation, that it's natural to just press. Kind of like how girls put on lipstick and they press. Just people don't think about it, right? But that's a clear indicator. If your lips disappear, usually that's a sign of stress or anxiety, and there's something going on. There's some kind of deception going on, right? So you combine that with the itch, right? So it's been scientifically proven. You can look this up, that there are certain blood vessels. I'm sorry, not blood vessels. Forgive me for not understanding completely how to explain the science, but there's certain physiological responses that the body goes through when it's trying to conceal or deceive, and that can lead to itches in not in certain spots, but just itches in one particular spot on the face. If they keep going back to a particular spot, that's a telltale sign of a physiological response to some type of concealment or deception, right? In that particular answer, he goes across to the back of the neck right at the same spot twice. Okay, so that's cause for concern. That's cause to pay attention, right? The last part of this that makes it clear that there's some concealment and deception going on is the it's a what is the word? It's a micro reaction. Micro reaction that happens on his face right around this area, just under the eye, right? And the micro reaction that I'm going to back this up, and you guys can blow up your screens, whatever, so that you can see it. But it's another sign of contempt, right? So usually what happens with dogs when they're showing contempt, what do? They show their teeth, right? And what that causes is the cheeks to raise, and your the eyebrows furl, and that kind of, right? So what we're looking at now is this high cheek area flutters just a little bit, right? But it's only this side, and it causes the face to briefly take on a sign of contempt. So I'm going to back this up a little bit so you guys can see this. All right. So you're going to watch for the itch. You're going to watch for the lips disappearing, and then watch the micro reaction. It's going to be right under his, it would be, to us, it would be his right eye. To him, it would be his left eye.
That, guys' approaches are different, but
Sorry,
your nameless face
a little bit.
Resolve to per se reemerge from that Atlanta New England stretch.
Yeah, I mean, look,
That's one.
Throughout the season, there's going to be obviously the highs and lows, and you hope that those things don't, at the end of the day, right now we're chasing consistency, and every game counts the same in the NFL, and our approach, our mindset, they're nameless, faceless opponents, and every week it counts the same on the record.
Licked
Is
the
the
lips
same.
once
And,
already.
not to say that guys' approaches are different, but the records mean absolutely nothing. We got to earn it every week, and our standard that we hold ourselves to. We didn't play to yesterday, and ultimately it results in a loss. And we speak about the
Second
process,
itch.
but at the end of the day, the result, we work everything we do to go 1-0, and we didn't do what we had to do yesterday.
Even
and
the
so,
breathing.
I got to do a better
That's
job,
two.
and it always
There's
starts
the
at the
lips
top. And
disappearing.
if it's not getting it done, I'm not doing a good enough job.
Because just the number of
There it is.
down sacks.
There it is. Did you see the eye flutter? That's what I'm talking about. So there's, again, all this stuff. The concealment and the deception is him trying to play it cool, like he understands what the solution is and he understands what needs to be done and he's taking accountability. But the frustration shows in that eye flutter, that cheek movement, that micro reaction where you can see contempt, frustration, anger. This is, again, based on what Jim Monis was saying and what Tyler Dunn were saying in their podcast. I think it was yesterday, or 14 hours. So yeah, that would have been yesterday. Brian Daboll's relationship, and we know this, it wasn't just bad with Sean. It was so bad that they were both absolutely convinced Brian Daboll does not come back to this team unless Sean has completely changed his tune, or unless he's coming back as the head coach and Sean McDermott is no longer here. That's how bad that ended, right? Now, if you go back and you read the Tyler Dunn report, there are several reports from other coaches that again, Sean's process, Sean's way of doing things rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So it's not far-fetched to think that this frustration is because of what I've said and what Tyler Dunn has also said are restrictions put on this offense that kind of handcuff him. He's got to take all these questions. He's got to, face all this, criticism for something that's really not, I would say, not even 50% his fault, because he's only controlling the passing game at this point. Aaron Kromer is basically, and I talked to Coach D a little bit about this. He'll give his thoughts on it tomorrow. But he was even saying, like, yeah, Aaron Kromer is on the mic during the game saying things like, yep, I like this run play, I like that run play. So not that Aaron Kromer is helping him call plays, but in a sense, he's giving him an idea of, down in distance. Okay, I think I like this play, or I like that play. And ultimately, Joe Brady makes the decision, but he's already been fired once from an NFL team for not satisfying the defensive-minded head coach. You can't do it a second time, or you're going to be that much further back in achieving what seems to be his goal in becoming an NFL head coach. So, tough spot to be in. And I mean, the physiological responses we're seeing, clear indicators. Let's get to some comments real quick, actually, while we take this break. I don't know what's going on with Facebook right now. I really don't. But I apologize to anybody that's still watching this there, but I'm just going to go ahead and remove it for now. So I keep getting this notification that it's having a hard time, doing whatever. Anyway, let's see what we got here. George, what up, man? It says only lies need defending because the truth stands by itself. It's time for honesty. I agree. Jason's okay. Jason, what up? Says I appreciated the fact he's not happy with himself and is holding himself accountable. Though I agree. I mean, it would be one thing if he was making excuses, but he's not. Show the difference with Bob Jr.'s presser. Do I have time? I mean, this is kind of an old presser. Everybody's kind of seen this. Maybe I'll just get through a little bit more of this, maybe halfway. I would need to switch over in like the next 5 minutes though. So let's see here. Jason says Dawkins is about to receive the key to the city of Buffalo soon. God, no. I firmly believe in continuity and consistency. So if we keep switching our OCs, we will never have anything to build off of. Yeah. Nate, that is, I can't remember the last time I was extremely proud of his play. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, man. You know what really did it for me was the divisional round game here in Buffalo, where he just got bull rushed by Chris Jones right into the lap of Josh, and Josh couldn't get that pass off to Shakir at the back of the end zone to for the go ahead touchdown. That cost us the game, and again we got to keep this in mind. Our head coach is oblivious right now to the accountability, or lack of, I should say, of his defense when it comes to accepting the responsibility of the outcomes in the playoffs. And when you think about the approach that has taken place in terms of the focus on defense and all that kind of stuff, that's not we need to be better on defense. That is, we need to replenish because we got a lot of expiring contracts and 1-year deals and stuff like that, and our defense is getting older. That's what that is. They feel like they've already built their offense the way that they're going to build their offense, and they can just do what they did on defense, add a few pieces here, some 1-year deals, some shorter term contracts. They've just kind of shifted the focus now to, okay, now let's tear down the defense and build that back up. Let's get an influx of youth and draft well there, and then we'll be fine. But when you listen to Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane talk about that game, even this year, the AFC Championship game and the divisional round game that we lost, most of the time they're talking about, we had the ball at the end of the game there. I would take that every time. That's what they said about at the end of the AFC Championship game, this past year. And when you think about them saying that stuff out loud, what that says is, well, we don't think that it was the defense not stopping them at the end of the game from going ahead of us that was the issue. Because in their mind, okay, the defense gave up the touchdown, but now Josh is going to go down and score, right? What does that speak to? That speaks to Sean's mindset of, we've got the great eraser. We've got the guy that can make all the problems go away if he just goes out there and does it for us, right? But that's not a mentality that's going to put Sean in a position to say, I got to put some pieces around Josh to help him be the great eraser. Like, it's one thing to think of a player that way, and it's another thing to think I've got to give him the tools to be the great eraser. So I don't think this is going to go away until Sean goes away. Unfortunately, I don't think switching coordinators is going to do anything, because the same stuff we're seeing now is what we were seeing right before they fired Dorsey. So no difference here. But let's listen a little bit more to this press conference, get what we can out of it, and we'll get out of here.
You guys have taken up to this point in the season.
Yeah, no, I think I think that's a product of living in third and longs. You play dynamic pass rushes, and I think every sack is not always just on the offensive line. Every sack is not just on a quarterback. It coincides. There's a little bit of everything. Some of it is communication. Some of it is getting to some checks. Some of it is getting open. Some of it is, just all being on the same page. And, so there hasn't been a common denominator of like, hey, this is why we're getting sacks. But, when you're living in third and long situations, you're not necessarily two-dimensional, and so it allows teams with good pass rushers and to be able to.
Did y'all hear that? He is finding some really good spots to come at Sean in this press conference. Listen, if you think for 1 second that this relationship is going to get better, you are out of your mind. It's gotten so much worse this season in particular. Everybody eats. I do not think that was the brainchild of Joe Brady. I think that was a coping mechanism and something that was kind of brought out to ridicule almost Sean's mindset of winning by sum of parts, right? Sean is the one who's all about team. We've already seen Joe Brady's offense. We know what that looks like when he's able to design it and do it the way that he wants to do it. So him saying, everybody eats, it's cute, it's funny, but knowing Josh, Josh is very like inside jokey, and I'm certain him and Joe Brady were laughing that stuff up behind the scenes and came up with that, and it became an even bigger joke to see it be on hats and t-shirts and all that kind of stuff. Like that's our quarterback. That's who he really is behind the scenes. But he will never, ever, ever criticize anybody, in public. And I think Joe Brady right now, with everything that he's doing in this press conference, he's trying to fight for his own career and defend himself. And I applaud him for it. Yeah, take the responsibility. You had a part in it. You could you have done something different? Hindsight is always 2020. You got to acknowledge that. Fine. But at the end of the day, there's some restrictions on this thing, and he's trying to tell y'all there's some restrictions on this thing where we're getting ourselves into situations with this, with what we're doing now, and that's what's getting us in trouble in the passing game. That's what he's trying to say. The run stuff that we're doing, the running on first down, the focus on being the top rushing team in the NFL, like all that stuff is getting us in trouble. You got to take the handcuffs off, let these boys throw the ball.
In their ears back, and we got to do everything we can to stay out of those situations. And yesterday was running the ball, was getting us behind the chains. Past games, it's been passing the ball, getting us behind the chains, and so we got to continue to do a better job of staying in two-dimensional situations, so we're not allowing them in those situations.
One of the things, when I look at numbers, I don't know, this could be wrong or right, but it looks like teams are playing a lot more zone against you this year. Maybe keeping eyes on Josh in those situations.
Yeah.
Could be the reason why. That's what I'm hypothesizing. But I'm interested in, without going into strategy, is there a difference for you between a receiver and how he can get open versus zone and man? Like, is it just a receiver can get open, or is that a skill set? You know what I mean? Like when teams want to play you a certain way and understanding the feel for that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different. There's a type of routes against man. Some give them freedom to be able to do different type of release plans. Some it has to be an outside release. There is some teams play zone. Some teams play like a match zone that can feel like man coverage, but depending on the release of the stem or the release of the running back, it could play out like man, it could play out like zone. Some of it is, like I said, scheme. Yeah, we haven't got a lot of man this year. Generally speaking, we don't. And some of that might be because of Josh, and every game we go into, we make sure that we have man checks and we have alerts, and, sometimes we'll start with man beaters, sometimes we'll finish with man beaters, so to try to keep teams off beat.
So that's kind of crazy. Because we're sitting here saying, oh, beat your man, get open. They're just playing man coverage on the outside. All you got to do is beat your man. Nah. He told you right there is actually more zone than you would think, or zone match. And I mean, truth be told, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense because the second you turn your back to Josh, that gives him the ability to run. Playing zone is what's keeping Josh behind the line of scrimmage trying to throw the ball because all eyes are on him. So if he runs, he ain't going to get very far, right? So I think that's also another thing that's very revealing about what this offense is facing this year is, here we are thinking it's on the receivers, just go out and get open. Nah. They're playing zone or zone match, and whatever it is that they're doing in zone or zone match, with a little man sprinkled in here and there, it's taken away the route concepts that they currently have, and I think and Tyler Dunn talked about this too, when you run the style of offense that they're running, it's a very limited playbook. Tyler Dunn said he had a conversation with an NFL, I think he said an NFL coach. I don't know if he said head coach or not, but he talked to an NFL coach sometime this week, and he asked him about the Bills' offense, and he said their offense sucks. I hate watching it. It's an NFL coach. Their offense sucks. I hate watching it. It's crazy. It's crazy how people confirm the things that we know. We as fans are looking at this and we're saying the same thing. This offense sucks. We hate watching it. But our coaches, mainly our head coach, gets asked about the passing game. Yeah, I want the passing game to be better. Oh, really? Well, how about you let Josh do the stuff that he was doing when Brian Daboll was here? Why not do that? That makes a lot of sense to me, but I guess obviously not to Josh, or not to Sean rather.
With that, but yeah, there's a lot of different release patterns and plays necessarily for wide receivers. I think, yes, is there a skill set at the top of the route, being able to, hey, the nuances of working it, or is there a different type of release patterns versus, how certain corners play. Every corner is going to play differently, and how am I going to run a slant versus this guy as opposed to this guy and this guy? And so there's a lot of different elements that go with it. But yeah, I think there's a difference, and there's a difference in play calls, right? It's not just on the player; it's also on the plays. If, like I said before, if we're running a play that is a man play, is a zone answer, and you get man coverage, is it the receiver's fault? And there's some nuances. And if we're running a man beater in a zone concept, it's like, hey, it's a runaway, but it's zone. So is he getting open? Is it access? So I think it coincides. It's just as much on me as it is, us finding ways of getting to the right checks and the alerts. But
Valid point.
yeah, I think there's a difference. Long-winded.
Josh Allen and him becoming this all-world player, MVP, you're the offensive coordinator, you're the guy in that room that is in control of all of that. What's it like to have hard conversations with him when he doesn't have a good game? Because he came out yesterday and put all of that on him, that he didn't play well. He had a couple turnovers. He might have missed some guys. Where do you feel like you're at in your process?
Doing some interesting stuff with his eyes right now. So he closed himself off twice. But let's go back to this for a second. Look at his eyes. Look at his eyes when the reporter says, you're in control of Josh, or control of the offense, whatever was he said. But just watch his eyes. The squint, the focus on that particular part was almost like, no, I'm not. You know what I mean? I got to think about that for a minute, to kind of get a better idea of the squint expression when. Let me listen to it again.
All-world player, MVP, you're the offensive coordinator, you're the guy in that room that is in control of all of that.
Is in control of all that. Well, first of all, we know he's not in full control of the entire offense. Aaron Kromer is the run game coordinator, and Joe Brady is the pass game coordinator. So technically, all Joe Brady does is coordinate the passing game and call the plays from the booth on game days. At best, he is offensive coordinator in name only. Because if you're thinking about all the responsibilities of an offensive coordinator, you'd have to include Aaron Kromer in that. Aaron Kromer designed the run game. So, and on top of that, Aaron Kromer gives his input on game days on, what run plays he likes in certain situations. So there's more than one mind operating this offense. You can't say that Joe Brady is in full control of this offense. That squint, it's either yeah, rightish, like no, not so much. I think that's what it is. It's no, oh no, I'm not. Actually, that's not right. That to me is what that's the impression I get from that squint. But then watch his eyes again, because he starts to close himself off through the latter part of this question here. And a lot of blinking too. Which is, so when you're interviewing people, interview is another word for interrogate or question, whatever. When you're interviewing somebody, you do want to pay attention to breath frequency, breath depth, how frequently they blink. If they're under anxiety, the amount of times that they blink per minute can change. So you want to try to get a general idea of how often they're blinking throughout the conversation. But 9 times out of 10, when you see a sudden change like that, there's some kind of anxiety or something going on in that moment that's causing a physiological reaction. So watch his eyes.
What's it like to have hard conversations with him when he doesn't have a good game? Because he came out yesterday and put all of that on him, that he didn't play well. He had a couple turnovers. He might have missed some guys. Where do you feel like you're at in your process and having those harder conversations with him, and that whole dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, look, we speak in truth and honesty, and we both hold each other to the same accountability. I said the exact same thing. The way that he felt is how I felt. Not necessarily for his play, but when things don't go well as an offense, right? I tell guys all the time, when we have success, it's about them, and when we don't, it's about me. And I can live with that. That's the shoulders that I bear. That's the responsibility as an offensive coordinator. Now, with that, when things, not necessarily just for Josh or for other guys, when things aren't to the standard, we have those conversations. And as long as you speak in truth and they know that you're in it for their best interest, you can have the honest conversations and be able to speak, put it out there, ask for feedback, and kind of keep it rolling. But I think there's one thing players do in this world, and just humans, they can tell when people are BSing with them or not speaking the truth, and all they want is the truth, and find ways to have a solution with it, not just, hey, you weren't good. It's like, hey, what can we do about it? And when we have the greatest player, and he has the highest standard of himself, and I never want to see him in that mood after a game, right? And so I got to do everything I can so that he's not in that position after a game. So that's where I got to do better.
What is that communication like between you and Josh when it's like going back over how a game was called, the plays you called? Did he like them? Did he not like them? Like, how do you guys go over that?
I think we do it in a couple different stages. After the game, we just try to get the raw thoughts. Like, hey, what did you think? Sometimes you have a feel. I'm up in the box, right? I see everything kind of slowed down. There's sometimes I see from a coverage, and it's like, hey, why did the ball not go there? Well, I didn't see that. A DN might have stunned it and his vision was blocked. Got it. Or sometimes, he's out there and he's seeing something and he saw a technique of a corner and got to a check, and it's like, cool. I didn't see that. So I think some of it is both on the sidelines, just our communication, just seeing it the same way, and then after the game, the raw thoughts, and then we watch the tape, and then we come in and sit and talk about him individually, and then as as an offense and directions that we can go. He's the best player in the world, and so we have all the confidence in us figuring it out when we don't have a good game. But the standard is a standard. Standard doesn't change, and and that's the standard that we set for our offense. And so when you have performances like that, we speak in truths, and I think you guys felt how he was yesterday, and that's how we all should be, and that's how we all were. And if we all just point the thumb at ourselves and not point the fingers at other people after losses, we'll find ways to get better.
I'm not sure I like the language of we speak in truths. I mean, everybody has their own truth, which leaves a little bit too much to be interpreted in order to find the actual truth of the situation. I mean, tape don't lie, right? So, I mean, he probably could have did a little bit better by saying, we're honest with each other. But I'm sure that's what he meant. We speak in truths. These catchphrases and stuff it's coach speak. I get it. We're getting a little bit short on time here. Let's get to some comments. As far as the Bobby Babich presser, to be clear about where Bobby Babich is as opposed to where Joe Brady is. Bobby Babich is in a very cradled and comfortable situation. He is a liaison basically for Sean McDermott right now. He's liaisoning Sean's scheme, right? Now Sean is taking back the play calling duties. in light of everything that's going on. Sean thinks he can do a better job. I don't know if that's true or not, because obviously what we saw on Sunday still exists. I think the biggest difference in the last 2 weeks was Shaq Thompson played against a very strong run game with Dorian Williams, and having two actual linebackers play the run as well as they can makes a big difference. The other part of that is you had Milano and Bernard come out for probably the only game that they could ever be good in throughout any NFL season, which is a game against the Chiefs. So I think when I'll get to your question in a second, Nate. When you're thinking about what Joe Brady has to take on, it's all of this is gonna fall on him. You know, I mean, he's calling the plays, but he doesn't even get to design the full offense. So it's a big difference, but that comes out in the press conferences when you think about how free and open Bobby Babich is. He ain't got nothing to hide because he's already said in the press conference, it ain't my system, it's Sean's system. Like he told y'all that. Like I ain't got nothing to hide. I'm out here chilling. I'm out here coaching. I'm living life, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where he's at. So, to answer this question, would Brady be any better when he's on the sideline? So that is something I would like to see. And it's tough because when Brian Daboll first started off coaching here, he was in the booth. Or wait, was it? No, I'm sorry. Dorsey started on the sidelines, then he went up in the booth. Daboll was always on the sideline. I'm sorry. Daboll was always on the sideline. So what Daboll would do is he would go and sit down with Josh himself, and they would cook right there on the sideline, right? So maybe Joe Brady, if he, because one thing that Tyler Dunn did mention is the Buccaneers game. I don't know if you guys remember that game. This would have been, I think this would have been Tremaine Edmonds last year. In that game, I think it was against Brady, the overtime game. They were trying to play more of the way that Sean wanted them to play, run the ball, efficiency, blah blah blah. And I remember thinking at that point in time, because they had Vita Vea back then, he was a young stud, and I remember thinking like their run defense is too good. What are you doing? Trying to run the ball so much. Like get to passing the ball, get to slinging that thing the way you can. And Tyler Dunn goes, halfway through the game, Daboll says, F it, we're just going to play offense the way we know how to play offense. And that's when they started to come back. So I'm saying all that to say, I'm bringing that up to say, I think I would love to see Joe Brady give a little bit of that. I mean, he's already kind of, cranking up the middle finger a little bit in these press conferences, saying what he's saying about the run game and getting behind the sticks, and he wanted to pass the ball more at early on in that game. Can Joe Brady maybe get to a place where he says, F it, I'm just going to come down to the sideline and me and Josh are going to cook some stuff up and it's going to work. And what's Sean going to do about it? We're winning. You know what I'm saying? To be perfectly honest, I think Joe Brady still gets a head coaching job, whether it works, here or not. All he's got to do is have a conversation with people. Most people in the league now know how Sean is anyway. Tyler Dunn report came out. That was more for us, but coaches talk. So they already know how Sean is. So if Joe Brady gets fired from here and Sean can tell us whatever he wants to tell us, head coaches, other coaches in the league, they know. That would be funny, Locked Rain. That would be hilarious if they became if Joe Brady became the Giants' next head coach. That would be funny. Laura says, if I were Joe Brady, I'd have some real game planning to do career-wise. Playing another man's game and sucking seems worse than bucking the directive, playing my game and succeeding. Yeah. The only thing for Joe Brady is he doesn't have that kind of juice in the NFL yet. He's got a little bit because he's the first coordinator that produced an MVP out of an MVP season out of Josh. But I don't know if he's got enough juice to just say, I should say it like this. I don't know if he thinks he has enough juice to just say, F it, we're going to play offense the way we know how to play offense. They screwed either way. Maybe not. Listen, Mike Kafka is a good up and coming offensive coordinator too. Like there's a reason he had that job with Dayball. I've heard some things about Kafka already in terms of, young up and coming OC. So he gets an opportunity to be an interim head coach. I think that's going to be good for him going forward. He'll get another OC job and he'll be fine. But I say all that to say, I like what the Giants were building under Dayball. I think the Daniel Jones situation really soured the fans, and Mara, their owner, does tend to keep his ear to the ground when it comes to the rumbling of the fans, which is something I wish Terry Pagula would do here. Mark, I saw this earlier. It says, how long is this process? Because we're 9 years in and it still doesn't have an identity on either side of the ball. That's because a lot of it has changed. I think this is the first year that we've seen a clear picture of Sean's identity. I think we saw it in the Carolina Panthers game, to be perfectly honest. For whatever was wrong with the pass game that day, I think being dominant in the run game and being dominant and physical and tough defensively is the identity Sean wants to see on defense. The issue here is we have to, and this is more on me, I have to figure out the percentages of influences on the draft picks, because I know for a fact that as I've talked about before, Sean and Bean sit there for the first 3 draft picks and they go through their short list that the scouts give them and they kind of figure out who they like. And then Bean puts a plan together for, trying to get these guys. Obviously they talk about, if it's necessary to move up to get a particular guy or whatever, but they just kind of, have their list and they sit back and they try and watch and see how the board falls and go, make their pick from there. Right. But seeing the guys that they've picked and seeing the guys that get picked after our draft picks, it does bring into question, like, who's determining, the names that are going on the card, who's giving the final say. Because if it's Sean saying, I like these guys only picked from this list or whatever the case may be, well then, it's on Sean. That's what I think is happening. I haven't confirmed that yet. But either way, we got to determine the percentages, because that's what determines the identity. I mean, you can't have an identity unless you have a level of consistency in one area of the team. It could be you're a passing team like we used to be when under Dayball. We were a passing team. You know what I mean? We had all kind of fourth quarter comebacks. Like, people knew we beating you through the air. Like, that's what it is. We can't run the ball. We'll try. And if you really suck at run defense, we might get you, but we're going to beat you through the air because we know nobody in the league can stop us right now. That was our identity back then. Defensively, it was, we're going to pass and nobody can stop us. And we got one of the best secondaries in the NFL. You're going to have a hard time passing on us. So the part of the reason that portion of, like, that version of our defense didn't work is we didn't have any pass rush. You know what I'm saying? The investment on the defensive line there, player position, whatever you want to, point at, it wasn't good enough. So, the secondary wasn't able to operate, at peak efficiency. So, I guess you can kind of see those as identities, but yeah, I mean, we need something to be able to point at, and that comes with consistency. Let me see. Y'all better listen to Laura. All right. Okay, I got you, Tommy. I'll hit you up. Let's see here. Live Drain says fire McD. Fire McD. That's a pipe dream with him being bestie with the owner. So that was another interesting thing. In the Tyler Dunn report, he talked about how because he mentioned he's had conversations with Sean, and Sean really, really wants to win a Super Bowl and blah blah blah. But in talking about this relationship with Sean and Daboll, which is really the best chance they ever had at winning a Super Bowl, in my humble opinion. He talked about how Brian Daboll had such a close relationship with the Pagulas, and Sean looked at that relationship and thought to himself, I think this was told to him by somebody else on the team, or multiple sources on the team kind of talked about, Sean's perception of that relationship. And what he said was, he said Sean looked at that relationship that Brian Daboll had with the Pagulas and thought, man, they might like him better than me. They might fire me and just make him the head coach. And he said what he substantiated that with is based on his conversations with people on the team. Terry Pagula is all about relationships. So your head coach sees his offensive coordinator having a better relationship with Terry and Kim Pagula. He climbs into his fear bunker. Oh my God. Like, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think it would be the most ironic and justice served type of thing to happen for this team. And I would be all about it. I'm sorry, Nate. I know you hate that idea. I would be all for it, man. That's where I'm at. But yeah. Jason says they paid Cook all that money to run the ball, and he's great at it, but they don't use him enough. I think they're starting to, out of necessity. But again, here's the other part of this too that I want you all to take from this, and then I got to get out of here. I talk about a lot on all of the shows on this channel. We have a voice, right? We all have an ability to influence what happens with this team. And that influence comes from what we are saying out loud. And when there are more and more people saying or talking about the issues out loud in a way that says we're tired of it, the reporters hear that. When the reporters hear that, they feel empowered to ask the right questions, right? When they start asking those kind of questions, we saw James Cook get way more passes in this Dolphins game than we had seen him get all season long. All season long. In one game, they threw it to him like 6 times. Probably a little bit more than that. But that is the power that we hold. So people, they've shown you on the field already. When you get to talking and when you get to making noise and these media people hear you and they feel empowered to go start making noise, you're going to start seeing some change. That's the rundown. That's the cascade effect that happens when we start making noise. So stop thinking that this is something that we just got to wait for it to happen. We can make this happen if we really want it to happen. Y'all just got to make enough noise. So serious about that. Yeah. And Cook stayed on the field after the fumble. That's a great point. Whereas when he was a rookie, he got benched. Right? So you took Coleman off the field after he fumbled. You left Cook on. Why? That moolah changed a whole lot of decisions. Telling you right now. Why does both sports organizations in Buffalo like to regurgitate head coaches and GMs so often? Because it's about relationships, right? I've said this before. They have databases of head coaching candidates and stuff that they go through. And what Terry does is, they interview these guys, and Terry's really looking for who he can get along with. That's what Terry's looking for right now. It's not about which guy is going to do the absolute best job. It's, this guy's a coach. He's going to come in. Do I like him? Yeah, I like him. That's it. Not any consideration as to how good he is. Because keep in mind, Sean McDermott got hired at the same time as Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. There were a bunch of other coaches from the Washington Redskins at the time, from that franchise that could have been chosen, offensive minds that he could have brought in here that would have been way better, right? But he goes with Sean McDermott. That's a choice. And Sean talked a lot and still talks a lot about, how he shares similar beliefs with Terry. Like, that matters to Terry Pegula. So that's really what it's about. It's about relationships. Well, so here's why I say it's about the money here, right? Because being the best offensive player didn't mean anything when it was time to get rid of Stephon Diggs. The money didn't mean not one thing at all. I think the money and the position on the team, like him being the second best player, because at the time he was the second best player on the team. I don't think any of that matters when you're in the doghouse. But I think not taking your second best player on the offense off the field when he's the focal point of your offense right now, and he's the only thing that is making your offense go. Like, Josh can't even make this offense go right now. The only thing that makes this offense go is Cook. You gonna take him off the field? For what? For Ray Davis? Not that I want to start an argument about this, but sounds like ass kissing. Yeah, it can. Locked Rain says, watch, they paid Cook all this money and gonna trade him next year like they did with Diggs and Von Miller. Maybe. Oh, I don't want to get into Mecole Hardman right now. Oh, man. Yeah, you're gonna be very surprised when you find out what they about to do with him. It's unfortunate. It is unfortunate. All right, I gotta get out of here, y'all. Let me do this here. Bow. For tuning in. I hope you got something out of this. Pay attention when these coaches are talking. They're giving you as much as they possibly can without getting a flag on the play. You know what I'm saying? You just got to pay attention. You got to know what to look for. So hopefully, we're able to give you enough of that on this show, where you start picking up some things and you're able to watch these press conferences and really start to get a better feel for what these coaches are actually saying, because it's important. They're telling you as much as they possibly can, but are we hearing it? And when we hear it, are we actually paying attention to it? That's really what it comes down to. After we pay attention to it, you gotta make some noise, folks. You can't just be resigned to just criticize it on the side. You know what I'm saying? Yes, thank you, Nate. Join. Yes, there is a Discord. So when you become a member, it's $1.99 a month. I'm sure everybody's got a couple bucks that they can toss out the window and be fine. It's $2 a month, and I will send you a link to our Discord chat, and then you got unfettered access to me and Keys. We can talk about whatever. Most of the people that are in our Discord chat are in our fantasy league too. Which Laura, you really got me thinking about making it a paid league next season. At the very least, making a second league that's paid. But we'll get to that. But yeah, hit us up. I just click that membership button there, and become a member. And then what you need to do after that is find us on social media. You can put it in a comment on one of our videos, or you can DM us on social media and just say, hey, I just became a member. Just wanted to let you know I'm ready to hop in the Discord chat with you. And if you want to send me your good night, Laura. If you want to send me your email, then I'll probably ask you for it. If not, I should be able to send it through direct message to the invite to the Discord chat. So that's how you get in. If you are interested in doing that, that's how you do it. Okay, bet. Thank you, Jason. Thank you. All right, so that's it. I gotta jump ship. So this has been another episode of Podium Conversations. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, make that thing rang-a-lang-a-lang, so that you can get notifications when we send notifications. Like, back at you tomorrow with Coach D's Corner, live with you, live 7:30 p.m. tomorrow, Thursday. For those of you that are watching this on a Thursday. See you then. Peace.